Thank you for listening to the Conformed to Christ podcast, where we seek to engage the mind, affect the heart, and call people to follow Christ. I'm Jay Jones, and I'm here with George Mays.
Good morning.
Good morning, George. It's Free for All Friday, and in true Free for All Friday fashion, we're not sure what we're going to talk about.
Yep, it's one of those days.
Hey, we've got one though that we're going to plan coming up, right? We're going to do we're going to do Mark of the Beast.
Oh, sure.
We got to do that.
Sure.
We've like the people are posting all kinds of crazy stuff online about that the vaccine's a mark of the beast and all this stuff. So we got to do a mark of the beast episode.
Sure.
But we might have to plan that one out so it doesn't get crazy.
I can't imagine how it would get crazy in here, Jay.
So let's plan one of those out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we sat down this morning and we're looking over the different topics that we could discuss today. There's too many. There's so many. So it's we're just going to play it by ear, I guess, and see what happens.
Let's start.
We have a great intro.
We'll start this off on a positive note.
Okay.
With some good laughs.
All right.
So here goes a video of the president on Easter doing his Easter address.
Yep.
And he didn't really talk about, what Easter's about, like any of that.
Well, Jay, as we know, Easter transcends the resurrection.
Right. Yeah. But he did talk about he did pray for the Easter bunny or invoke God's name for the Easter bunny. So we're going to show that. Yep. Let's check that out.
Look forward to next year when the White House will ring with joy of the season once again, and there'll be an Easter egg roll, God willing. May God bless you all. May God protect our troops and take care of the Easter bunny. Thank you all very, very much.
Wait for it.
Stand in the middle, Easter bunny, right here. Get in the middle.
Come here.
There you go, right here. All right.
That laugh.
Watch this 3 or 4 times, and that laugh gets me every time.
Oh, my goodness.
May God protect our troops and take care of the Easter bunny. How's that make you feel as a...
Is that crazy? Yeah. Yeah, that's insane. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he even knows what he's saying, or what day it is, honestly.
Yeah.
He just reads whatever they put in front of him. He's just he's performing now at this point,
Yeah. It's good entertainment, though.
Yeah. They've got to make it, I think they have to make it 1 year. Is it 1 year or 2 years before they replace him with Kamala Harris? Because if they do it too soon, she can't run for 2 terms, right? But if they wait long enough, this won't count against her.
Oh,
then
really?
she can actually serve for 2 of her own.
Oh, I gotcha.
Right? So they're just trying to get to that date. You know what I mean? He's probably pumped full of so many performance-enhancing drugs, you wouldn't even believe it. He could probably go out this summer and win the home run derby.
Yeah. Not in Georgia, though.
Not in Georgia. Yeah. You see that? Baseball is back, George, and it is... I've spent a lot of time watching baseball this year.
Yeah.
It's pretty much all I watch at night now.
Yeah.
Because last year was... Remember last year?
Oh, yeah.
The sad times.
Right.
No baseball.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been watching it, enjoying it, and then, you saw what they did.
Yeah, so I haven't read up on this Georgia bill that they're putting through, but it seems like it's just requiring a photo ID to vote.
Yeah.
That doesn't... Maybe it's because I'm white, Jay, but that doesn't seem unreasonable.
I need to bring the clip up of the guy asking white people, do you think it's racist to require a voter ID? Is it racist to black people? And all these white people are like, oh, yeah, of course, whatever.
Yeah.
And they don't have, access to, DMVs and, and some of them don't know how to use the internet and whatever. Yeah. Like how racist is. Of course, these
Right.
are like people from California. And then they go to like New York City and
Yeah.
ask them like, "Hey, do you have a photo ID?" And they're all like, "Of course I have a photo ID."
Right.
Like you can't
Yeah.
live with it. You can't have a bank account, right?
Right.
You can't have a bank account. You can't do anything without a photo ID.
Yeah. Well, it's so Major League Baseball was going to hold the All-Star game in Atlanta, and they're pulling it. They pulled it out because of the Georgia bill.
Right.
Right.
Well, here's what I think. I think that MLB staff or whatever, headquarters, I don't think they had any idea what was in the bill. I think Biden put pressure on them
Yeah.
to do it.
Mm.
And I think they were like, oh, the president, hey, maybe
Yeah.
we should change, move or whatever. And they were probably calculating, what if we don't? Are we going to get lumped in with this? And
Yeah.
are they going to spend this on us? But the bill itself,
They're gonna get hit hard anyway because I saw something that someone tweeted that shows that Major League Baseball requires a photo ID to pick up tickets at will call.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to have a photo ID for everything, man.
Every company that's boycotting Georgia over this, like the airlines that are doing it, like they require a photo ID.
Right.
It's ridiculous that Coca-Cola has issued a statement against it, and they do business with China.
Right.
Like this is,
Yeah.
I'm not buying that they think that this is somehow immoral
Right.
because
Yeah.
it's just all politics.
Yeah.
Like
it's all they all calculate
who's
it, how they
still
can make money.
who's still buying that
It's-
this is actually about fairness or equality? Like, is
Nobody.
anyone buying this anymore?
Apparently, a lot of people are. But it's really about power and
Yeah.
and politics. That's all it's about.
You should automatically be suspicious of the party that doesn't want there to be voter IDs.
Right.
Something's
Can you
a
even
little fishy.
go to the library without an ID? Can you go to the public library without an ID? You have to have some kind of identification.
You have to have some kind of identification to prove that you live where you say you live.
Yeah.
You have to have something that proves
Yeah.
where you live.
It's pretty racist to say that black people can't get an ID.
Right.
Like that's I got to show this video while you're talking. I'm going to try to find it and pull it up.
Okay.
Because it's they're the ones that are racist, thinking that they can't do it. It's insane. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
But think about this, George. How it's just been spinned automatically as racist without people even looking in it.
Right.
Right? They say like, oh, you can't bring people water. Here's an example. They made it where it's illegal to take people water where they're standing in line.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't. You know that, right?
Right.
Like the poll workers, they can take water out there. And I'm pretty sure like your family members can bring you water or friends. What they stopped is electioneering
Right.
so that you can't be approached.
Yeah.
And people can be like,
Bribe
oh,
you.
here's a bottle of water from Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Be sure to vote for Joe. You
Right.
know, whatever. They stopped that.
Right.
They made that illegal.
You should want that. Like you don't want the person that is the best at bribing to win.
Right.
Like, how is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand the whole thing. It's ridiculous. Yeah, the whole idea that black people don't know how to use the internet. Like, how racist do you have to be to think that black people don't know how to use the internet?
Yeah. They well, here's the
Maybe there are black people that don't have access to, they can't afford to buy a computer.
Mhm.
But there's white people that can't afford to buy computers.
Mhm.
Again, it's not about race. If anything, it's about economics.
Mhm.
It's not about race. It's
And
about economics.
And so, speaking of the economics of the whole deal, as they say, like 110 million, I think, is what Atlanta
Yeah.
was going to get from
Yeah.
the revenue of hosting the All-Star game. And Atlanta is like, I think Larry, I thought it was 51%. He said no, it's actually like 62. 62% black Atlanta, and that's a lot of black businesses that are going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so like you actually hurt them.
Right.
You hurt the black community there, and you moved it to a predominantly white place because Colorado is like the white. Is it like the whitest state?
Maybe not the whitest.
It's not the whitest, but it's up there.
Yeah.
It's but they have similar election laws. That's the whole.
They already have the voter ID in place, don't they?
Yes, voter ID.
I think they already have a law on the books that you have to have a photo ID.
Right.
But because they already have it, it's not. I guess it's not racist.
It just shows, though. I know MLB's regretting this. Even some, I think even Stacey Abrams, who ran for a Senate seat, remember her? Mm-hmm. She's like, this was not a good move because it hurts the economy. Yeah. You're hurting the people of the community by moving it.
Right.
So I think there's regrets.
You know why Colorado's not a problem, right?
Because they have the mail-in voting.
Well, it's a liberal state.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they have mail-in voting. Mm. Like their laws are more lenient on that, I guess, apparently. But that was crazy.
While we're talking about...
I got to try to pull this video up, man.
Okay. Well, while we're talking about all the woke nonsense, because that's what we usually talk about, you hadn't even heard about this before we showed you this this book this morning, did you? There is a new, it's called A Collection of Meditations for Renewal. This is a devotional book that is being sold at places like Target. Of course, if you're a solid Christian, I don't know why you would go to Target for your devotional material.
Yeah.
But this is called A Rhythm of Prayer, and it features a whole bunch of different authors. But what's catching everyone's eye is this one prayer, if you want to call it that, by a theological professor at Mercer University. And it's called Prayer of a Weary Black Woman.
Let me hear it.
You want to hear some of this, Jay? Dear God, please help me to hate white people, or at least to want to hate them. At least I want to stop caring about them individually and collectively. I want to stop caring about their misguided racist souls, to stop believing that they can be better, that they can stop being racist. How you feel about that, Jay? Can you believe that?
Mm. Of course I can believe it, George.
I am not talking about the white anti-racist allies who have taken up this struggle against racism with their whole lives, the ones who stand vigil for weeks outside jails where black women are killed, who show up in Charlottesville and Ferguson and Baltimore and Pasadena to take a public stand against racism and police brutality, who are so committed to fighting white supremacy that their own lives bear the wounds of its scars. No, those aren't the people I want to hate. I'm not even talking about the ardent racist either, the strident segregationists who mow down nonviolent anti-racist protesters, who open fire on black churchgoers, or who plot acts of racial terrorism hoping to start a race war. Those people are already in hell. There's no need to waste hatred on them. Perhaps, however, you could make sure that they don't take the rest of us with them, that their attempts at harming others are thwarted, and that they don't gain access to positions of power. My prayer is that you would help me to hate the other white people. You know, the nice ones. The Fox News loving, Trump supporting voters who don't see color, but who make thinly veiled racist comments about those people. The people who are happy to have me over for dinner but alert the neighborhood watch anytime an unrecognized person of color passes their house. The people who welcome black people in their churches and small groups but brand us as heretics if we suggest that Christianity is concerned with the poor and the oppressed. The people who politely tell us that we can leave when we call out the racial microaggressions we experience in their ministries. It goes on and on. I don't know how much I want to read. I have to read this part, though.
Okay.
Lord, if it be your will, harden my heart. Stop me from striving to see the best in people. Stop me from being hopeful that white people can do and be better. Let me imagine them instead as white hooded robes standing in front of burning crosses. Let me see them as hopelessly unrepentant, reprobate bigots who have blasphemed the Holy Spirit and who need to be handed over to the evil one. Let me be like Jonah, unwilling for my enemies to change, or like Lot, able to walk away from them and their sinfulness without trying to call them to repentance. Let me stop seeing them as members of the same body. Free me from this burden of calling them to confession and repentance. Grant me a get out of judgment free card if I make white people the exception to your commandment to love our neighbors as we love ourselves.
Crazy, man.
This is the most insane thing I think I've ever read.
Yeah. There's no way that a person that knows Christ could pray such a prayer or even write such a prayer.
Oh, no way. No way.
Help me to hate someone.
Help me to hate someone. Give me a get out of judgment free card. Harden my heart. Like that. It's never a good good thing when God hardens your heart. It would seem like her heart is
it's already hardened. Yeah, that's the irony
of
it.
It's a judgment. It's not a blessing. It's always a judgment when God hardens your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Stop me from striving to see the best in people.
Yeah.
Let me be like Jonah. Jonah is not presented as the example to follow.
Right. Yeah.
Wild stuff, man, and this is being sold in Target.
Yeah. There's a lot of hatred in people's hearts. I think that's the lesson that's here.
Yeah.
She already hates those people. She doesn't need to pray, God help me to hate them. She already hates people.
Yeah.
That's the sad reality of the current time in which we're living.
Yeah.
People are being taught that. They're being taught to hate each other.
And they're being taught that it's white evangelicals that are the hateful ones.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are buying into it.
Yeah, they are. They really are. But again, it's fueled by a lot of things: power, money, things like that are behind it.
Yeah.
And it never ends anywhere. Like it never ends. The answer to hate is not to hate people.
Right.
Like that. Like if the Martin Luther King Jr. would never even endorse that, what she's saying.
Right.
He has his famous quote about hatred.
Right.
Hatred can never drive out hate.
Mm-hmm.
Only love can do that.
Mm.
Yeah, we're living in strange times. There's blatant racism on both sides. Of course, they say you can only be racist if you have power and you're an oppressor.
Right.
But that's not the case. Speaking if the Bible is our guide, and it is,
right,
then we understand that hatred, to hate is to commit murder.
Mm.
So she's praying, God, help me to break your commandment forbidding murder.
Yeah.
Jesus says to hate is murder in your heart.
And she wants these white people to go to hell. That's what she says. Show me that they're reprobates.
The nice ones that are colorblind.
Right.
Right. When we go back again, let's go back to Martin Luther King Jr.
Right.
He was dreaming of a day where people would be colorblind, and they were judged not on the color of their skin, right, but on the content of their character. And so now if we say, hey, we are colorblind, we, here in our area, we're living that dream that he had.
Yeah.
They'd say, no, that's because you're a racist. You're not colorblind is racism. So they're changing definitions of words. They're changing words. They're changing meanings, redefining racism. It's crazy. It's a crazy time we're living in for sure.
Yeah.
We're under the judgment of God. I mean, that's the only explanation as this culture is under the judgment of God.
Yeah.
So just let us go our own way. But talk about microaggressions. She brought up that word microaggressions, right?
Right.
And micro racisms. I got a whole video of them.
Oh yeah.
You want me to cue this thing up?
Sure.
Of white people saying, like black people can't get IDs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, see the irony is these are the liberals, right? that are being interviewed, they're the liberals. They're the ones that are anti-voter ID. Because they're anti-voter ID, but it's actually because they're racist and they think black people can't do things white people can. That's what this video shows. It's about 4 minutes long.
Okay.
Well, let's watch it.
Sure.
Let's watch the whole thing, actually. Let's see. I don't think there's any bad language in it, but I'm not promising because it's from YouTube. You ready?
Okay. With that disclaimer.
And here we go, having that problem again. Switch it back over, Larry, while I cue it up, please.
We are
I know what it does.
Real technologically advanced up in here.
I mean, we pretty much are. I think that did it. You ready, Larry? Here we go.
I'm Ami Horowitz, and I'm here in Berkeley, California to find out if voter ID laws suppress the black vote. Do you have an opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad.
I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far to say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed.
I also think there's a repression of black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the African Americans.
Now I'm here in East Harlem to ask black people their thoughts on what you just heard. Do you have ID normally? You carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. That's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, an ID.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy cameras?
I know, right?
That's the only thing I brought with me.
Those are legit IDs. I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Really?
What does that say to you?
I know it's on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is around you?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Do you have a problem getting there if you have to get there?
No.
I know these sound like silly questions. You know how to get to the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Just checking.
Okay.
And I also heard a lot that black people, especially poor black people, have no access to the internet, can't figure out how to use the internet.
That's just stupidity, honestly. Everybody has access to the internet. Even a little kid can figure out how to work the internet.
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So, of course, I know how to use it. My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Your phone has data? Mm-hmm. You can access the internet
unlimited.
Unlimited data?
Mm-hmm. I use my phone as a hotspot.
What does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant. That's what my thought process on it.
I just think that's ignorant. Ignorant.
That's the
very,
word
very ignorant.
Ignorant.
It's very, very ignorant.
Does it sound racist for somebody to say that?
I think it is a little racist because, you're putting people in a category and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Maybe a little bit of racist in it, but like I said, I think it's more stupidity and ignorance.
You're judging somebody, but you're judging them because they're black, saying that they don't got it.
What people are they talking to? Who are these people talking to?
Do you have a problem that if you go to vote and they say, "Can we please see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are?" Are you cool?
Love showing my ID.
You got no problem with that?
Nope.
Would you have a problem if when you go to vote, if they say, "Can we please just see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are?" Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Would you have a problem if there was a rule where you have to show your ID in order to vote?
I don't think so. No.
Would you have an issue if there was a rule saying you got to show your ID before you vote?
Nah.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
There you go, George.
Wow, that's that's good stuff.
See those all those white people, they actually believe that.
Right.
They're totally brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
Total indoctrination.
Yeah, they don't see how that's racist.
Yeah. That's what you
It's
get.
wild.
That's
Yeah.
what you get at university today.
Mm-hmm.
You send your kids off to university. They're going to teach them. They're not going to teach them. They're going to indoctrinate them.
Right.
And they're going to inadvertently make them racist. like it's insane. And they actually believe that they're doing it because they care. Right. I'm anti-voting laws because I care, because black people can't. Of course they can't do that stuff. Most of them are felons. Did you hear that one girl?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Most of them are felons, and felons. What? This is crazy.
It's wild stuff.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's liberalism for you, though.
Yeah.
Well, what else do we got, George?
I mean, hopefully Christians. I know Christians are falling for this stuff, but we need to be more discerning than this.
Yeah. Kids are going to go to college. That's one thing that we need to keep in mind. We have about a bazillion kids in this church.
Yeah.
Like, most of them are going to go to college. I doubt, they're not even safe if they go to a Christian college today from this.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. You've got to be teaching your children at home. Their mind has to be totally informed by the Bible.
Right.
So when they start to get bombarded with this indoctrination, they actually know how to think through it.
Right.
Because their minds have been ruled
Mm-hmm.
by what actually is, as described in God's Word, and they're able to smell something's off.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, something's not right here, because they're just going to get bombarded with it when they go to school.
Yeah, you need to always stop and think through these issues, not just accept what you're hearing just because you're hearing it all the time. You can have some critical thinking skills and ask questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
Well, did you see that, we talked about Raphael Warnock and his tweet.
Yeah,
his
tweet.
Easter tweet.
Yeah,
his Easter tweet.
Hasn't aged well.
How Easter transcends the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
And whether Christian or non-Christian, if we do good to each other, we can save ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, he got pushback on that.
He did.
Obviously. And what did he do?
Deleted it.
He
deleted the tweet.
Yeah, he deleted the tweet. And this, look, he said it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, deleting it is not the same as repenting.
Right.
Deleting is trying to cover your tracks, which is ridiculous because people screenshot everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, once you post something,
I screenshotted it.
Send it to you. It's out there, right?
Right.
I mean, you can't escape it. So deleting a tweet is not the same as saying I was wrong.
Right.
Now, if he would have actually come out and said, I'm wrong, and stepped down as being a reverend, that would be repentance. But it's out there. I mean, he said it. Why did he delete it?
Yeah.
If you believe it, then why don't you stand up for it?
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you really believe,
well,
show some backbone.
I'm sure his political advisors told him that that's what he needed to do because Americans have an extremely short-term memory.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but if you're gonna say something, you might as well stand up for what you believe.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really do believe that Easter transcends the resurrection, whatever that means, and that we can save ourselves, why even be a pastor? Just be a politician.
Yeah. I don't know.
Just be a motivational speaker. I mean,
social worker.
What's the point? What's the
social
point of
worker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of standing up for what you believe, you saw what happened.
Yeah.
Right, in Canada
Mhm.
with Grace Life Church.
Yeah.
Grace Life Church Canada. That's James Coates.
Got out of jail.
Got out of jail. They let him out. He was there a month.
When did he get out? 2 weeks ago?
I think so. Yeah, he was in jail a month for defying the health orders.
Right.
And there again, we go back to this fact: there have been 0 cases of COVID spread linked to his church. They've been meeting for over a year. Right.
Yeah.
We've been meeting this whole time. No COVID spread from our church either. I mean, there are churches that have been meeting and there's not. So these measures are extreme. They're literally taking away people's rights unjustifiably.
Right.
Like if it's Ebola and people are getting it and dying in the streets and bleeding out from their eyes, we got it. We're not having church. Right. We're not gonna but this is not the same. Not even close. And just the fact that they met for a year and there's been no COVID spread.
Yeah.
George, what do you think that justifies the reaction from the government to do?
Well, you don't punish people when they haven't done anything.
Yeah.
You don't. These all these measures, they're to prevent something, but if it's not happening, like it's not you're not breaking any kind of law. Just leave them alone.
How about just
focus on the areas where there are outbreaks. But don't worry about this church that is defying you.
Right.
And nothing is there. There has been no spread.
Right. How about taking their building, seizing it? Because that's what happened this week.
Yep.
They I guess at 6 a.m. yesterday. They
Wednesday morning.
Royal, what do they call it? Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Sure.
RCMP. I guess I don't even know what that means. Royal Canadian Mounted Police. That's a long word for police. Right? Are they mounted? Are they horseback? No, they're driving trucks, and they drive up and they bring some workers with them. They've got fencing, and they fence the whole thing up.
Did they change the doors closed?
Yeah, they change up the doors. They put up a chain link fence all the way around. Probably the same contractors that put fencing all the way around our Capitol building. Totalitarianism's not spreading, George.
No, of course not.
No, it's not.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
How much have you seen from the ERLC about what's going on up there in Canada? Nothing. Yeah, that's the point.
They fenced it off. They stole their building. The government has stolen someone's property and building.
Right.
With no cases of COVID linked to this church.
Yeah.
I think it's time for the Canadian church. Everyone in that province, was it
Alberta, isn't it?
Alberta or Edmonton? No, I don't know. I don't know my Canadian geography.
Yeah.
They should all meet there. There should be 10,000, 20,000 Christians show up at that church on Sunday.
Yeah.
From all over that place. And they ought to tear the fence down, put pickup trucks and pull the fence down and jam themselves into that building and surround the whole building with an overflow of 9,000 people and have a massive church service and then let them arrest 10,000 people.
I mean, what do they think is going to happen? You think the church is just going to stay at home? They're just going to disband? I mean, what they don't understand is that the building is just the place where the church meets. It's not the actual church. So you're not going to be able to stop them. Have you seen the video of like the surrounding area?
It's all country, man.
It's all country.
Yeah.
So what do you think they're going to do on Sunday?
Yeah.
They're going to meet in the field probably next door to the church.
Yeah.
Like you can't stop the church.
I hope they do. I hope they come right there in front of all those people.
Yeah.
The whole church gather in that field.
Yeah.
And I hope other churches join.
Yeah.
From all over the place.
These other churches, they have to see that this is not just a threat that's going to stop with this one church. They're not coming for one church. They're coming for all of them. If you defy them, they're coming for you.
Yeah.
And this is obviously not about a virus.
Right.
And anyone that's saying, well, they should just follow the rules, like, you need to wake up. This is not about their health, because there's been no problems. There's been no health problems.
Yeah.
This is not about the health. It's because the church has openly defied the government, and the government doesn't like it.
Yes.
So they're going to flex their muscles.
What they should do, what the government should have done if they were a just government, is they should say, hey, let's take a case study of this church. Yeah. Let's see what this church did, because they met for a whole year and had no COVID spread in their church.
Yeah.
And whatever they did, let's put that out as information so that other people can worship and exercise their rights, and then they can follow what they did and not get sick either. But instead, they're just cracking down.
Yeah. Did you see the article? I cannot remember what paper published it. Larry, you might know. They're saying that it's going to be white evangelicals not taking the vaccine that keeps us from getting over the pandemic. You didn't see this?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, they're already blaming white, and it's got to be white, right? Even though there are black evangelicals that are also reluctant to take this untested vaccine, right? But it's the whites, it's the white evangelicals, and it's their refusal to take the vaccine that's going to be the problem.
Right.
And you see where this is going, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, anybody that knows church history knows that this is exactly what governments do.
Mm-hmm.
They look at natural disasters and they blame it on the Christians.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Romans did.
Yep.
They blamed the natural disasters on the Christians.
Yeah.
And here we are, 2,000 years later, and governments are going to do the exact same thing.
They are. Yep. Things never change. The governments of the world never learn. They never learn, George. They've
No,
had
they
so
don't.
many opportunities to learn.
Yeah.
You can't fight against an inevitability.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would tell these government leaders.
Right.
Like, and you don't, and you can't be excused like the Romans could.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have world history to teach you this lesson.
Right.
You're going to kiss the sun.
Right.
Or you're going to be broken.
And you'd be wise to do it now, willingly. But if you don't kiss the sun, his wrath is going to be poured out on you. You can't stop the church.
Mm-hmm.
Nations have risen and they have fallen over these 2 millennia, and the church is still here.
Yep.
And the church is it's gonna still be here.
Mm-hmm.
China's got their mobile units that are going around abducting Christians and torturing them.
Torturing them. Coke, though, will do business.
Coke will do business with them.
NBA will do business. LeBron James is all about them.
Yeah.
And and they're not stopping it. That's what they have to be in a panic, man, because Christianity has spread so quickly in China.
Yeah.
Over the past 50 years. They have to be sweating it in the government.
Yeah.
Because if it spreads far enough, they know what will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Their government will topple.
Yeah.
Because these worldviews are in opposition to each other.
Right.
So if once they reach that tipping point, I don't know, sociologists probably know what the tipping point is. There is a tipping point.
Yeah.
Where the majority of the population becomes Christian, the CCP is over. It's done.
Yeah.
And then you can mark another nation that Christ has conquered.
All right.
That's exactly what I'd say if if these extreme measures were being done here. I don't know. What would you ever thought about what you would say if someone arrests you and you're standing before some judge? You get a chance to do what Paul did, and Paul would declare,
right,
you're not the real authority
Yeah.
here. You have a delegated authority. There is an authority greater than you. And then you preach the gospel to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what you say. You take them to Psalm 2. You say,
oh, yeah.
Hey, you thought I was on trial. You're on trial.
It's yeah.
You know what I mean?
Psalm 2, Psalm 110. Those would be places to go. Jesus said that the gates of hell will not prevail against his church. What do they think this chain link fence is going to do? It's going to take away some of their creature comforts, but it's not going to chain the church.
Yeah.
The gospel is unbound because they can't touch Jesus. Jesus is beyond their reach. They can't do anything to him.
Mm-hmm.
And if the king is free, he can do whatever he wants.
Yep.
And that's what he's doing. He's seated on his throne, and he's ruling and reigning, and he's putting his enemies under his feet, just one by one. Yeah. So we're seeing a bunch of, opposition against the church from both outside and inside.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no reason to despair because Christ is still reigning, and he's still accomplishing his purposes. One of our church members passed this story along to me this week, and it shows the danger inside the church. We talked about it a little bit, I think, a couple of months ago when it happened, that the SBC kicked out 4 churches.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And this story is from USA Today, and the headline is, "A Georgia church kicked out of the SBC for allowing gay members, wants to make sure everybody's welcome." So this is Townview Baptist Church in Kennesaw, Georgia. And it says that 2 weeks after being kicked out of the Southern Baptist Convention, Townview Baptist Church celebrated its 32nd anniversary by formally accepting members the SBC said they should have turned away. One by one, Pastor Jim Conrad introduced 7 new members, which in the Baptist tradition have to be approved by a majority of the congregation. He didn't mention that Brockton Bates and his partner Skylar were gay, nor that another new member was transgender. Because he didn't have to. The church already knew. They'd already come to this place where they would accept members into their congregation who are sexually deviant.
Yeah.
And this article, it walks through I'm reluctant to even call him a pastor anymore because he's led his church away from the truths of the scripture. But it talks about how he was approached by this homosexual couple and asked if they'd be welcomed.
Yeah.
And he said that he could have told them that they would be able to attend the church, but not anything beyond that. And he said he wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So, but over the course of time, the pastor and the church, they started to allow this, and it's interesting what one of these homosexuals said. He said, "We weren't even looking for one to affirm everything about us and love us, just a place where sermons wouldn't tell us our lifestyles were wrong or that we were living in sin." And the article goes on to talk about, is this a turning point for the SBC? This is a conversation the SBC needs to have. A professor of theology at Duke Divinity School said there's a really toxic culture going on right now in the SBC. And then he starts talking not only about our views of sex, but also systemic racism, of course, and CRT, not allowing women to be ordained as ministers.
Yeah.
And, what should the SBC do? Of course, what the view of the article is that the SBC should change their stance, because it's the SBC that's the problem. Right? It's so when our views of sexuality or complementarianism or race go against the culture, it's because our views need to change, and it's not because we're just following what the book says.
Right. Yeah. Somewhere along the way, though, this happened far before this. Well, let me back up and say this. The gentleman said he wanted somewhere where he would be welcome. And I would say to anyone listening, even to homosexuals, you're welcome to come to our church every Sunday. In fact, I'd love for you to come.
But see, we have to define what that means.
Yeah,
Right. Because the definition, it's just like toleration.
Right.
You know, tolerance, the definition of tolerance has shifted into not just agreeing to disagree.
Right.
But if you don't agree, and now it's if you don't celebrate,
right,
then you're not tolerant.
Sure.
Because words are violence.
Right.
It'd be the same thing as me coming up and slapping you in the face because you're homosexual.
Right.
But that's not what the word tolerant has meant for hundreds of years. And it's the same way with welcome. What does it mean?
I'd even go beyond
welcome?
Tolerance and say hospitable.
Mm-hmm.
The Christian stance at our church would be to be hospitable to every person,
right?
No matter who they are, if they come in, they're a homosexual or what color they are, you're going to experience hospitality, and dare I say, even love that a Christian has toward all mankind. Now, the problem is we believe that we are slaves of Christ.
Yeah.
And so we don't get to redefine his teachings. Gets to the doctrine of the Trinity and Christology. Jesus is the God of the Old Testament too. And so we don't pick and choose what parts of it that we instruct or we teach, right?
Right.
And nor can we define what the church is. He defines the church. It's his church. And so he says who's in his church and who's not in his church. And so when a church welcomes people into membership, what they're doing is saying, this is what a Christian looks like. This is a Christian. They're in with us. So we could not do that and be faithful to Christ to welcome in a practicing homosexual.
Right.
There's just no way we could do it. And we would be traitors to Christ. Nor could we welcome into our church someone who is fleeing another church and divorcing their spouse.
Right.
For no reason. I'm divorcing my spouse for no reason. I'm leaving my church. Hey, I'm coming at your church. Would you welcome me?
Right.
We would say no. No, you're living in sin. We don't know that you're a Christian even.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make many lists of this. And we aren't saying that you have to be a perfect person, right? To be a member of a church. We're just saying it's laid out in the scriptures. We don't get to redefine that. And this is also, by the way, the teaching of the church for the past 2,000 years.
Right.
So we aren't even the weird ones here.
Yeah.
Right. If you've gone outside that, the what's been handed down to us by the apostles through the scriptures, you're the one that's outside the norm, not us. But yeah, the way the things are going in the culture and the way things are shifting, that's the way that it's going. That's where the pressure is.
Yeah.
And that's where the pressure is going.
This insane post from Timothy Keller goes along with this. And I can't believe that someone of Timothy Keller's stature as a theologian would post this. I came across this a couple of days ago. He says, no one can prove any moral values to be true. They are in the end all matters of faith. Much of the rage on Twitter is because we are holding others to moral values they don't own and we can't prove. Saying we all know this moral to be true is not an argument, it's an assertion that can't be proven. Interestingly, the Christian sex ethic has been embraced and practiced by billions of people for centuries across more cultures than any other faith. It is agreed upon by all branches of Christianity, Orthodox, Roman Catholic, and Protestant. It overturned the older Greco-Roman shame and honor sex ethic that privileged males and the aristocracy. It introduced the idea of consent that many say we all just know this is true, but history shows for centuries this simply wasn't the case. So even if you disagree with this great and historical ethical tradition, we must contend with it since worldwide it is growing while the secular understanding is decreasing. And I just don't understand I don't understand why he would say something like this. Like no moral values can be proven to be true. You have to take them as a matter of faith.
Yeah.
And it just makes me ask, do you even Romans 1?
Right.
Like, Romans 1 and 2 very clearly, Paul is showing that everyone knows that there's a God, and they all know through conscience when
they do something wrong,
obeying or when they're disobeying. So I don't know how someone like Timothy Keller can say this.
Yeah,
like we all know that it's true. He says, interestingly, the Christian sex ethic has been embraced and practiced by billions of people around the world. I wonder why.
Right.
It's because we all know intrinsically, because we're made in the image of God.
Yeah.
We have God's law. We know.
See what societies do. Like take for instance he's talking about the Roman Empire, the shame and power sex ethic.
Yeah.
And that may be new to people who don't understand the kind of caste system in the Roman Empire. But if you were a slave, you had no real rights. You were animate property.
Right.
A person could have sex with you and use you for themselves, like some other item, like they would use a fork.
Right.
And no one would care. They could even beat you. So Christianity upended that, overturned that. I think what he's saying is they thought their sex ethic in the Roman Empire was right.
Yeah.
They didn't intrinsically know that the Christian one was true. It wasn't until Christianity kind of overturned Rome, again, going back to what I warned all the nations of earlier.
Yeah.
But I think in reality, they do know, right? What happens is, as a young person, and anyone can remember when they were young, when they did something wrong and no one ever caught them, and they felt guilty.
Right.
That's your conscience. That's what Paul's getting at in Romans 1 and 2. That we have the conscience. It's God's grace, and it restrains evil in the world. But what happens over time, and what can happen when a whole culture subscribes to a counter-biblical ethic, even sexual ethic, is the first time you do something that's wrong, you may have felt guilty. So you put yourself in the position of a powerful Roman who has slaves, and maybe the first time he's a little boy, he sees his dad beat a slave, and he feels guilt. He feels bad,
right?
Because in God's has put this inside him, and his conscience that bears witness that this is another image bearer of God. He might not be able to think all these things through,
right? And
he feels ashamed that his father's beating another human. But then over time, that boy is taught to suppress that truth and harden his conscience, and he's now become a Roman,
right?
Where it's just what Romans do, but it still doesn't take away the fact and the truth of that God's word says that the conscience bears witness. We just are really good at suppressing truth and hardening our heart. Even whole cultures can do this. So yeah, Timothy Keller's tweet to me, I can understand what he's trying to get at, but it's
a Timothy Keller.
Yeah, but it's not filled.
He's never
forgetting
clear.
that part.
Yeah. He's never clear. He's not a theologian that I would recommend. I mean,
this is why everyone loved R.C. Sproul.
Right. He was clear.
Because he was clear.
Yeah.
He can make the most complex thing
right
so clear. Elementary school kid can understand it.
Yeah.
That's the theologians that we need.
Yes. Yeah. We talked about this. We don't need these guys that are just trying to make these tweetable quotes.
Yeah.
We don't need people that are trying to be pithy and rememberable. We need people who are simply clear.
Yeah, that's right. We're about tapped out, George. Can you bring us home?
Hey, that was I think we covered everything I had. Did we cover everything you had?
I think so. I don't know. I don't know. There's more Fridays to come. So
that is true. Yeah. Well, at least we got to cover the president asking God to protect the Easter bunnies. So I mean,
yeah.
Everything else was just it was just toppings. Well, hopefully this has been beneficial for you. I know we covered a wide variety of different topics, but we just again want to encourage you to have a biblical worldview, to be thinking through things with the Scripture and not just simply buying into what the culture is telling you, even if they're purportedly scholarly or smart people. We always want to have critical thinking and always come to the Scripture, because that's the place where God has promised to bless us and cause us to be conformed to the image of Christ. So that's what our goal is. That's what we hope that we've been able to do today, and we'll see you next time.